Now, chapter 3 is a very interesting chapter, and here's why. Because we just talked about in chapter 2 the 3 major shifts, right? From a post-figurative, co-figurative, and prefigurative culture. But now what we need to do is we need to overlay that with the 4 major ages throughout history. And it helps us to have a lens of why and how things have changed. And it gives us an opportunity to look forward to how we can make changes in our church, in our world, in our ministry, things like that. When you look at the 4 major ages throughout history, you have it broken down like this: agricultural age, industrial age, information age, and adaptive age. In the agricultural age, the schoolhouse was the same building as the church house. And many people went to have their faith completely tied to their education. You are also known by who you were, to where if people came up to you and they said, "Hi, who are you?" and you gave them your name, it would trigger for them, oh, they live on that piece of property. I know who their dad was, their grandfather was, and their great-grandfather was. So your name matters, and who you are is the thing that brought you value. And the smartest person in the community often was the parson or the pastor. Now, you move forward to the industrial age where people moved from the agricultural spaces into the assembly lines. And everything was built for the assembly line. The workday was built for it, the education system was built for it, the family structure was built around the assembly line and the workspace. And no longer was the smartest person in the room the pastor or the parson, but it was the boss. And you weren't valued by who you are, but you were valued by what you contributed, what you do for a living. To where people say, not, "Hi, who are you?" but, "Hey, what do you do?" And today, might I say, we still ascribe value to people based on what we do. We kind of judge, right? And you are valued based on what you do for a living. Now, you leave the industrial age and we get into the informational age or digital age, to where everything is on our screens and everything becomes automated, and no longer is the value ascribed to you based on who you are or what you do, but it's, "Hi, what do you think?" And what you think ascribes value to you more in society more than what you do and who you are. Now, those other things are still important, but have you ever gone on social media? Somebody who posts something that everybody likes is ascribed great value. But if you post something that somebody doesn't like, and they don't like what you think, they will value you or devalue you based on how they view you and based on whether or not they agree with what you think. That is a huge thing. And the smartest person in the room isn't the parson, the pastor, the boss, but the person who can get on Google the quickest or ChatGPT. So let's be honest. We're living in a place where we're in this informational age, moving to a new age. And that new age is the adaptive age. In 2022, we have entered effectively the adaptive age, and nobody's really talking about it, but we're going to feel the effects of it. To where you're not just valued by who you are, what you do for a living, what you think, but how well you adapt, how well you move and contextualize to an ever-shifting culture around you. I mean, there was a study done of the 500 major universities in the world. And this study showed that even 20 years ago, that you could get a job and the qualifications you get through your education will sustain you for the next 40 years until you retire. They said today, what you learn in university, that information becomes defunct after 3 years. So you become redundant before you have mastery. That's huge. So what that's saying is that people aren't hiring based on what you know, but how well you adapt what you know to the world around you. And then you have AI and Web3, which is adaptive technology. It adapts to everything around it. And you now become the algorithm that it reads and that it sets. So it's highly adaptive. And all of our models need to begin to shift around this. We do very well when it comes to discipleship around helping people understand who they are in Christ and what they're called to do. But we kind of start to fall off where it comes to how do you think biblically and how do you adapt and live missionally. So this chapter really sets up that part of the conversation.